All right, everybody, welcome to the GreenCourt Connections podcast. This is the September 2024 episode. And for those of you who've been listening throughout the year, you know that our company, GreenCourt, is in the government technology space. And this podcast exists to help connect our listeners on a deeper and more personal level with the folks who make courts and government agencies run. And we got a very special guest today, a close friend of mine and a legendary court clerk for the state of Georgia. Greg Allen is the Forsyth County, Georgia Superior State and Juvenile Court Clerk, and we're so happy to have him here today. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jay. You're too kind with the compliments, but thank you very much.
Well, we can't start off without talking about Georgia football for just a second, because I am not a Georgia fan, and I actually am annoyed by most Georgia fans, but you're the only Georgia fan that I know that I'm actually happy for when Georgia wins, because you had a pocket knife that showed the last time Georgia won a national championship before this flurry of wins the last few years. So I want to ask you, what have you done with that pocket knife? Have you added more dates to it over the past few years? Have you gotten a new one?
I still have it, and that's like you said. I love that knife, and I was extremely disappointed that no one actually came out with an official national champions pocket knife for the last two national championships. I even personally contacted the Case Knife Company because they made them for Alabama, and asked if they were going to make one for Georgia, and also asked for the Braves after we won the World Series, and they replied back and said no. So if anybody out there is in the knife business, I'd love to buy a couple of knives.
Maybe it's something to do with Alabama fans carry more knives than you sophisticated Georgia fans do.
Well, mate, I always carry a knife, but yeah, maybe so.
Well, y'all have gone on quite the tear, and the first game this year was no exception to that. Looked pretty dominant again. So I'll be cheering for you the rest of the year. Not necessarily all of the Georgia fans, but I'll be cheering for you.
Well, I appreciate that, and as much as some of your Auburn cohorts annoy me, always think about you. I'm like, well, there's some good people from Auburn. I kind of feel the same way.
Well, that's good. It's good when it's mutual. Well, you didn't start your life as a court clerk, so I'd like for you to walk us through kind of when you finished school, how you got involved in government, what that journey was like for you.
I was not involved in government at all until I got elected. I've always been in the software business. My first job out of college, I was selling a software management system to quick lube shops over the phone at $4,000 for the software, which was very hard to do. But being young and dumb and just out of college, I didn't know any better. So that's how I first got into software. And then I worked for a couple of companies that made the software for large format printers for engineers, architects, things such as that, and got to become an expert with that. Very niche industry. When times are good in that industry, times are good, and when the economy's bad, it's time to get out. And that was about 2008 when the economy started going south, and all of a sudden my customers started disappearing and saying they couldn't make their payments anymore on their equipment. So this job, my predecessor was retiring, and job came open, and some people approached me to run, and here I sit.
And what year was that when you got elected the first
Elected 2008, took office January 1st, 2009.
Wow. And then, can you believe it's been 15 years?
No, I really can't. It's flown, it truly flown by. But it is what it is.
And the journeys, and every clerk's journey is an interesting one. We had Sheila Studdard on a month ago, and she talked about how I named that episode "From Cop to Clerk," which was a awesome story. You know how Sheila can tell a story. So from cop to clerk, now we've got software salesman to clerk. So Clerks come from all different backgrounds. But I imagine when you were a kid, your dream job wasn't to be a clerk. So what was your dream job when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a cowboy. Um, I always thought I'd end up playing for the Braves, but it didn't quite pan out. Probably the best for Cowboys and Braves to
Well,
do that.
the way the Braves season has gone, you're probably on the call up list with all these
If they
injuries
need,
you have.
if they need another left-hander out of the pen, I'd stand ready.
So what was your favorite cowboy movie?
Oh, it's got to be Tombstone.
Me too.
They died with their boots on. Rio Bravo. Those are my favorites.
Tombstone is my favorite movie of all time. Like when somebody asks that question, that's my favorite one.
Wait, yeah, it doesn't take me long to answer. Not long at all.
The first time I watched that movie with my wife, we were about 30 minutes in, and she said, "You have to stop saying the lines before they're going to happen. You're ruining the movie." So we had I had to stop doing that.
Yeah, after you've seen it about 25 times, it gets to be pretty quotable. Anytime it's on, I'll watch it. I love that movie.
So shifting gears a little bit to mentorship, we talk a lot on this podcast about how we are all kind of a product of the people who have influenced us along the way. So when you think about your time as a clerk, I know clerks are a tight bunch. They stick together, they help each other out. Who has been the most impactful mentor to you in your clerk journey?
Oh gosh, there's several people. I'd have to say, well, first of all, let me give you a little background. I grew up. My dad ran the post office. My neighbor across the street was the tax commissioner. My neighbor next door was the state court judge. So I grew up, knowing these guys. They help people. They work here in town. They weren't too far from home, but that kind of influenced me. That you know all of them. And my dad ran a real tight ship, and it was you better do your job, and you better do your job right, and take care of people. And that's kind of what one reason I think I'm doing this. As far as my mentors, the elected clerks, I have to say, the late Tom Waller. So you could write a novel about his life. He was something else. Barry Wilkes, who is absolutely the smartest and most intense person I've ever met in my life. He You cannot keep up with that man's mind and his energy, and he was not afraid to tell you what he thought needed to be done. But I learned a whole lot from him. Brilliant man. And then here locally, when I took over my chief deputy, who had been here 30 years, she had went to high school with my dad. She said, "I'll stay a little while and help you get acclimated." And I said, "Well, I greatly appreciate that." She ended up staying for a full year, and we really had the best time together. And she taught me, she had worked for two previous clerks, um, had been here for over 40 something years. And, she said that, what this job, what you do matters. And it's going to matter today, it's going to matter next year, and it's going to matter 100 years from now. And she said, "I don't want somebody to look at my work in 100 years and say, they really were kind of sloppy and didn't do their job back then." She said, "I want people to look at it 100 years ago, you know what, they knew their job." And that's kind of been ingrained in me, is I want people 100 years from now to say, they did the best of what they had and did a good job. That's really kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's well said. It is meaningful work. Inside of our office at GreenCourt, we talk a lot about meaningful work, not just building software for fun or because it's cool, but actually doing something that makes a difference. And, to your point, clerks make a difference. And the record that you build and the record that you help keep is going to be the record forever. So, the clerk sitting here in 3024 will have access to the records that you were in charge of. And to your point, you want that to be a good reflection of your name. So, Greg, we have a lot of listeners that they're from government agencies that rely on the court system, but none of them really have a great idea about what goes on in the clerk's office. So, from a high level, I'd love for you to explain to everybody, what are the clerk's main responsibilities and what do clerks ultimately care about?
Well, we wear a lot of different hats. But the most important thing to remember is we are the custodian of the records. I talked about, it mattering in 100 years. It does matter. It matters now. Somebody's criminal record. It's a big deal to make sure that's right, both for their sake, so they can hopefully get a job and make themselves a productive member of society later on, and also to keep all of us safe and to make sure that the right people are serving their time, and the people who have served their time are out and hopefully being productive to society. So being a custodian of the record, what I have and what clerks offer, that is the record. When you want to know exactly what someone's status is, you always end up at the clerk's office.
And that's, I think a lot of people, especially as a lawyer, you hear lawyers talk about, well, this clerk wants this thing done this way, and that clerk wants this thing done that way. And there may not be a logical reason in our mind of why, but to your point, that's your legacy, right? How things are submitted and how they're added to the record is your legacy. And I want to let everybody know there usually is a reason behind uh, those quirks, if you will.
There is, and it may be because of something that's happened in the past, where the clerk got burned by an attorney, a pro se, or a judge, and it's like, what, we're not doing that again. I don't care what they say, or just maybe that's the way they've always done things. Now we try to change with the times and use our technology, and most people do. There may be some people that don't, but yeah, it may be. We're pretty we're trying to get more standardized, but there's still, certain counties need things certain ways, and it may not just be because of the clerk. It may be the prosecutor, the judges, the sheriff's office. Maybe there's, like you said, there's reasons behind why it has to be done that way.
Yeah, and one thing interesting about your county is it is a single county circuit, correct?
Yes.
What do you think are the advantages to that when it comes to running a clerk's office that is the only county as part of a circuit?
Well, we don't have to worry about what's going on in next door, or
Right.
or just north or south of us, or whatever. We only have to worry about our mess. But also we're all, you don't have to worry about a judge being two counties over and getting back, or maybe you're the small county in a circuit with several big counties. You might not get the attention. Everything here is magnified. You are the circuit, so that's everyone has to work together to make the circuit work the best they can.
Right. Um, we talk about how things have changed. Things are changing. There are, no matter what profession you're in, there are different issues emerging and different things that may worry you. As a clerk, what do you think are the biggest issues that clerks face today, and what keeps y'all up at night?
I would say the biggest thing right now, which who knows where it's going to go, is AI. Um, AI is I play with it. It's pretty cool and it works well, but it's not always right. You get some weird responses sometimes. If, for instance, I read an article it's about baseball, and it was Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak, and it was written by a person, but you could tell the way it was worded. There was a lot of AI to it,
Right.
and the person kept saying, the writer said 3 times, I caught it, that the closest anyone had come to Joe DiMaggio was Paul Molitor hitting 39 games. I'm like, that's not right. That Pete Rose did 44 games, and they never. And if you were doing maybe just American League, that'd be correct. But it was talking about Major League Baseball, and I'm like, somebody that doesn't know anything about baseball reading this is, that is absolutely wrong. The Joe DiMaggio part's right, but the details of who's second, that's absolutely wrong, and you just can't. Things like that bother me. Uh, you get the overall picture, might be right, but the details are absolutely wrong.
Maybe that's just one of the many different areas where MLB has tried to delete Pete Rose from their history.
That could be, but I also had an AI about how to throw a screwball, that actually turned it around was teaching you how to throw a curveball, which as their opposite. And I was like, some kid's going to tear his arm up reading this. It's crazy.
So for clerks, thinking about AI for clerks, of course there are some benefits that everybody can see by using AI, but there's some dangers too, right? And I think about the when stuff is filed into your court, you have somebody that you trust in your office that reviews those before they take them into the record. The idea of AI or something taking that position is something that scares me.
Exactly. Like I said, it could be wrong in some details. And as an attorney, if an and or a comma is in a different place than where it's supposed to be, then you may have flipped the whole meaning of what's being written. And I just I don't think we're at the point where we can trust AI to do that. I think for some rote things that happen every time, like the date must be here and the style of the case must be in this form, it's probably great for that. But it's just scary that then, as we just said, now all of a sudden the official record is is the opposite of what it's supposed to be, and that's the problem. And it's always easier to, it's always harder to change a record than it is to get it right the first time or reject it and make sure somebody does get it right before they file it.
So not a challenge yet, but probably an emerging challenge. Looking back over the past 15 years or so in the clerk's office, what has been one of your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome it, and what did you learn from it?
Well, a lot of it is to get people to accept e-filing. It scared the heck out of a lot of people, as you well know from at the Capitol and everywhere else. And even there's even the clerks that didn't want to e-file, and now everybody's like, man, that e-filing, that's the best thing we ever did. Like, yeah, we tried to tell you it's going to be great, but that's really changed a lot, and it's changed. I don't have to have as many staff as I used to have. Just using technology that way, uh, and being able to e-file. I know you're not into the real estate end of it, but 90% of my filings in real estate are all e-filed now. So it's really changed a lot.
Do you think your software background allowed you to accept innovation in software and change a little easier than some clerks did?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I knew the advantages of it and how it could actually help push us along and make everybody's life easier. And that's the whole thing, is to try to make it smoother, easier, and just a better experience for everybody. And it's done that. I also know some of the pitfalls of software and being too dependent on one person to get something done. If that person disappears, what happens to your software?
Right.
That's a very scary scenario when that occurs.
When you look back on your career so far, what's something that you're most proud of as a clerk? And that may be related to technology as well.
Well, we did implement a lot of technology that cut down on the number of people that had to touch things, and the heavy books and a lot of paper and stapling and removing them, things like that. But I would say probably the thing I'm uh, happiest about is I've saved the taxpayers a lot of money. I don't print deed books anymore. I quit that in 2010. Uh, we have 5,999 deed books. That's where we stopped. And right now we're at 11,000. So I would have had to have another entire wing of a building where I was still printing deed books to keep that information. Uh, I've reduced the head count here in the office. When I took office, there were 35 on staff. There was a separate juvenile court, which I've since took over, that had another 7. So that was 42 positions. And our population at that time was about 175,000. And so now our population is 280,000. So we're over 100,000 more. But my staff, I'm now down. I'm not down any. I'm fully staffed, but I've got a staff of 28 now doing the job of what 42 used to do. So while our population's increased 62%, we reduced headcount 30%. So it's again, saved the county a lot of money in salary and benefits, and also at the time, the deed books were saving us about $8,000 a year, and I have the print books. I know that's probably double now, so it's saved a lot of money over the years, and that's probably the thing I'm happiest about.
Yeah, I mean that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Being able to a lot of these metro Georgia counties where are growing very fast. I mean, a lot of these, just right outside of Atlanta, some on the outskirts, which Forsyth County is, a lot of people are moving to and growing. And sounds like you've been able to handle that growth without having to double the size of your office, which is definitely impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And people, once you deliver a high level of service, they expect you to continue doing that. And we've fortunately, through technology, through e-filing and our website and everything else, we've been able to do a lot more for people that they used to. We don't have as many people coming in the courthouse. They do everything electronically, online. Um, we don't see attorneys as much as we used to, which is good and bad. And we don't see as much of the public. We still see people who have to help them when they come in, but it's really cut down from the old days of when I first took over.
You've been every clerk kind of has their niche when it comes to counsel um, or authority leadership, and you've always really taken an interest in the legislative side of things. Where do you think that comes from? Why do you find that so interesting, and why have you chose that to be one of your focuses?
Well, it gets back. I mentioned Tom Waller and Barry Wilkes. Tom was in Gwinnett County, and he took me aside when I first came in. He said, "You know, I'm not going to be around forever, and not everybody, no one's going to be around forever, and we need somebody that can be at the Capitol quick if we need to." He goes, "You live as close to the Capitol as I do, and you can be there without having to drive 4 or 5 hours to get there." And so I said, "Sure, I'll come." I said, "I really don't know what to do." He said, "Just come hang around with us and you'll learn." And so I did. And then Barry taught me how to read legislation, change some of the wording, check for keywords, and I learned all about the mays and the shalls and things like that in legislation. And then they really kind of took me in and showed me, how the process works.
Any major legislation that clerks are interested in the upcoming session? Anything? Any inside baseball you can give us?
Oh, nothing I won't talk about. No, we'd love to play that close to the vest.
You learned that from Tom and Barry too, didn't you?
I did, and we. You have to be careful what you say. Sometimes you never know who's listening. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, switching gears back to sports for a minute, I'm a Braves fan, always have been, and watching us win the World Series a few years ago was one of the coolest things ever. I'm spoiled now a little bit in that I expect us to win another one. Do you think we're even going to make the playoffs this year?
I hope so, and I think they'll be dangerous if they make the playoffs. It's just they can't score. I mean, you got so many guys hurt. Uh, you got the MVP hurt. You got a possible MVP hurt. Uh, and you have one of the best pitchers in the game. I don't know how they're hanging on as it is, and they've really put this together with bubble gum and bailey wire, and they're still competitive. So, kudos to them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting stretch. I don't think we can catch the Phillies for the division, but I think a wild card spot is in play. And the last few National League champs, I think, were in a wild card position. So maybe that's a good place to be.
I mean, Braves were in great position last year, and I thought, I said, "Oh, we're going to the World Series at least." It wasn't in the cards. So, and with the pitching staff they've got, they could really shut some people down. So,
What do you think about as a diehard college football fan, what do you think about the current state of college football with all the changes and the changes to the playoff, the emergence of NIL? Do you find it easier or harder to be a fan of the game now?
I think it's actually a little harder because you don't identify with the players as much. They're not the guys that's been there. You bring some guy in through the portal and it's great and you're happy, but you know he's not really one of your guys yet. And you always live and die with those are our dogs, and you don't have that anymore. And it's crazy when the the Georgia quarterback makes more money than the San Francisco 49ers quarterback. Who would have thought you'd ever see that?
Yeah, it's changed quickly. I mean, it seems like it was just a few years ago where NIL became a thing you could actually do, and now it's. I don't understand how they're ever going to get control of it. It seems out of control to me.
I don't either. And as long as boosters want to pay money, it's gonna happen. I mean, it's really just it's everybody's a free agent every year. They can't lock anybody down. I really would not want to be a coach right now. I mean, look at somewhere like Florida State ran the table last year, and now they've lost their first two games and look bad doing it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can't convince me. I have a lot of respect for Nick Saban. I don't like Alabama. My wife went to Alabama, so I do love her. But you can't convince me that Nick Saban didn't retire because of the way the game changed.
oh, I think absolutely he did. I mean, he had nothing else to accomplish, and it's probably like, why am I going to put up with this crap? I'm,
Yep.
I'm going to go, and
Yeah.
I get it, but but then again, I don't begrudge these guys. I mean, they work their tails off, they get hurt. Some of them don't get the NFL careers because they get hurt. So I don't begrudge them the money, but also, I cannot imagine myself when I was 20 years old being in college with that much money. That would have been a disaster.
I completely. Um, Now, I don't think anybody would have paid me in college, so maybe a
Oh, it would
little.
have paid me to go away. I'm sure of that. But I mean, if I were that, I guess if I were that talented, somebody would try to guide me. But I just couldn't imagine being handed that much money at 20 years old. It would have been a crazy scene.
I was listening to a group of athletic directors talk, and when everybody in the audience was asking about, how do we get control of this, they said, "Don't worry, the federal government's going to pass laws that will contain all this." I thought right in that moment, I said, "Oh, we're screwed."
That's the last thing we need. Oh my God, no, no, it'd be horrible.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what we'll end with this one, Greg. When it's all said and done for you in the clerk's office, you talk about Tom's legacy and Barry's legacy. What do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
Like I said, 100 years from now, I want somebody to go, hey, you know what? That old guy, he did his records right. They're understandable. I can see them. I know what's going on, and I appreciate the work he did. That's really it. You can't ask for anything more than hey, somebody did their job right. Did, hopefully, they'll think I did it pretty well.
Yeah, I think you do, and walking around the office, you can tell that everybody has a lot of respect for you as a leader. I have a lot of respect for you as a leader. You're honest and you're kind, which I think are so underrated nowadays. Not everybody's honest, not everybody's kind. So as a customer of yours and as a friend of yours, I appreciate the way you do business.
Yeah, there's no use in banging the table and yelling. You're not going to get it, and if people can't do it for you, they can't do it. So move on. That's the way I look at it. So,
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. I always enjoy talking to you, and this episode will come out in a couple weeks, and I hope everybody enjoys it as much as we did.